Deputy Eamon Gilmore.
Taoiseach makes it sound as though this top-up to the pension fund is for the bank porters and the bank tellers. This top-up arises directly from the change in the contractual arrangements that were made for the chief executive of the bank. Now, what I want to know is, firstly, under the terms of the credit institutions legislation, did the government approve that arrangement, or did the Minister for Finance approve that top-up arrangement? And secondly, does the Minister for Finance or does the government intend to exercise its powers under the credit institutions arrangements whereby it can control these matters? Secondly, I want to raise also with the Taoiseach the issue whereby 2,000 times the top-up of the Chief Executive's pension has already been committed to Irish Nationwide Building Society by way of recapitalisation, 2,700 million euro in recapitalisation for Irish Nationwide Building Society, a building society where 8.7 billion of its loans are being transferred to NAMA out of a total loan book, extraordinary, out of a total loan book of 10.5 billion. And we're told yesterday that this building society has incurred losses last year alone of 2.5 billion. And we're also told that it was giving out loans of 120% for property speculation, not just here, but in the United Kingdom as well. This was a building society whose principal job was to give mortgages to people to buy their houses, and was engaged in a huge amount of lending for property speculation that we now know we all have to pay for. Now, Taoiseach, my question to you is this about the Irish Nationwide. You know, whatever may be said about other financial institutions, it was widely known that there were problems in Irish Nationwide. It was widely known that there were bad practices going on there, that there was enrichment by some of the top people in Irish Nationwide arising from those bad practices. And that had been going on for quite some time before we heard about Lehman Brothers and before we had the 29th of September and the bank guarantee and all that we found out since. Yes, the question is this. Taoiseach, you were Minister for Finance between 2004 and 2008. Can I ask you this? During that period of time, did the financial regulator, did the Registrar of Friendly Societies, did the Governor of the Central Bank, or did anybody in your department ever give you a report or ever bring to your attention as Minister for Finance the bad practices which were going on in Irish Nationwide, which have now been made public and for which the taxpayers now have to pay?
Deputy Gilmore.
Well, first of all, I find, again, that reply in relation to the pension issue quite remarkable. As I understand it, the enhancement in the pension, the enhanced payment to the pension fund arises directly from the fact that the retirement age of the person in question is to be reduced from 60 to 55. And by any standards, you know, an early retirement arrangement of that kind, which is rather generous and somewhat exceptional, I would think, at a time when when the government is talking about not paying the old age pension to people now until they're 67 or 68. Bank executives apparently being facilitated to retire at 55, and the Taoiseach says that that's not an enhancement of their pension arrangements. It's quite extraordinary logic. But on the nationwide issue, Taoiseach, I find what you have said, that you weren't given any report about anything amiss or anything strange happening in Nationwide, quite remarkable, given the fact that the government prepared legislation in 2006 and brought it in here one night, and it was night, the day before the House rose for the summer recess in 2006, and put it through here in one night before we rose for the summer recess. And it was legislation that was tailor-made for Mr Fingleton to enrich him. And I find it strange that, given that that legislation was brought in by the government and approved by you as Minister for Finance, that you didn't have any report, apparently, as you tell us, from the financial regulator or the Registrar of Friendly Societies, who had responsibility for building societies, or the Governor of the Central Bank, or anybody, that anything was amiss. Can I draw to your attention what one opposition deputy said in the House on that night? Why does the Minister of State, that was Minister Ahern, appear unconcerned that the management of a building society, which until recently used practices described by an Ombudsman ruling as being invalid and unlawful, may be substantially rewarded as a result of the demutualisation process? Why was a particular section, what input did the board of the Nationwide have to a particular section of the bill, which is tailored to allow the speedy demutualisation and sale of Irish Nationwide, and in the process to enrich the corporate management at the expense of the membership? And went on to say that late last year, the question is this: if these issues could be raised by an opposition deputy, issues, for example, the Irish Nationwide and its management have been the subject of years of accusations, some substantiated, of bad business practices, lack of accountability and failing to pass on interest rates, and goes on to draw attention to things that the Ombudsman had to say in that regard. If those issues could be raised by an opposition deputy on the 5th of July 2006, when the bill to enrich Michael Fingleton was brought in here by the government and put through the House in one night, how is the Taoiseach telling us that as Minister for Finance at that time, that he apparently hadn't any knowledge of any of this, didn't know anything of what was going on in Irish Nationwide, had no report from any of the regulatory bodies, and now we end up in a situation that yesterday we're told Irish Nationwide loses €2.5 billion, had been loaning out money, giving out loans for at 120% the value of the properties and so on, and to date, and there may be more to come, to date the taxpayer has been asked for €2,700 million to pay for all of that folly, and you know nothing about it.